Welcome to the Divine Purpose Podcast, where we transport you along one of the more dynamic journeys of life. Have you ever been curious to know what it takes to become a successful leader? Or about knowing the secrets of life through the Bible? How about engaging in conversation where no topics are off limits? We will take you to new levels with guests who can help you grasp the importance of your calling. Now, here's your host, Eddy Dacius, founder of Dacius Facilities Management.
Hey everybody, this is Eddy Dacius with another episode. This is our 11th episode. Every Wednesday we have a new show, a new episode. We have a great guest. This episode is brought to you by Dacius Facilities Management. Dacius Facilities Management will manage your property with a variety of services such as cleaning, maintenance, facility management, construction, and vendor management. Please call them now, 617-237-0106, or go online at daciusfm.com, daciusfm.com. We have a great show for you. We have a guest. Her name is Victoria Antoine. Victoria Antoine, how are you today?
I'm doing good. How are you?
I'm good. Thank you for coming. Thank you for being in this show. Like I said, this is our 11th episode, and we're going to try to know more about you and go deeper into that conversation. So what can you tell us about you?
By the way, I'm Haitian.
All right.
I'm Haitian. So I am a independent journalist for 5 years, and also for 5 years I used to run a startup company. One is an online fashion magazine, and another one is a creative agency. So the fashion magazine used to be FASE Magazine. I was the managing editor, and then I moved up to the editor-in-chief for pretty much just like 4 or 5 years. And then I become a business manager for a creative agency, which is Nymei, which is for people who needed our services, especially if they needed digital marketing, event planning, and any services that were details in digital marketing and social media management. And now I'm working on a documentary film based on the psychological damage between Black mothers and daughters in the African diaspora. This documentary is a very personal and very intimate documentary based on, the facts of my personal journey with my relationship with my mother and my grandmother, and see how our family dynamic is different, and also to give more history of how we have a different, relationship between our mothers and daughters in the African diaspora, especially in the Haitian community. Yeah. So it's going to be a very controversial film, but it sets the tone of creating an open dialogue. So pretty much I am a proud Francois. For everyone knows that I have a hat called Francois. For people who don't know, that Francois is it's a slang, or it's a word to say rude, but also could be used as bold. So I'm a very bold person, and I have no filter. I tell it like it is, and It is what it is. But
the Haitian way,
what
right?
I'm currently working on is the Haitian way, exactly, the Haitian way.
But let's go a little bit deeper on that documentary. I think it would be very interesting. Can you tell us more? What gets you to go for something like that?
Yeah. For the documentary, I, with the years' experience with my journalism skills, and I have traveled through the Caribbean, Haiti, Trinidad, Tobago, and Guyana. They all have the same problem, which is the family dynamic.
Okay.
So when I was traveling the first time I went to Haiti, it was before the earthquake. Yeah. And it opened my eyes of the relationship between mothers and daughters, and mothers treated their daughters as servant. I see that all the time when I was visiting my family in Haiti, and mothers treat their sons like kings. And when their son goes wrong, who's the first person to stick up to? Mama. And I'd be hearing so many stories of, I heard so many stories that girls are being sexual abused in our community. Yes. There are being psychological damage. There's mental health an issue. There also is social economic differences between Black mothers and daughters. So for the low income, below poverty, the relationship is very difficult. And, it's like the survival mode, where compared to higher income mothers and daughters, they're having more intimate, more healthy emotional relationship. If that makes sense. For me to do the documentary, I had to see the overall of the history, like going back from Africa when we were enslaved to the Caribbeans, where we gained our independence during that time. And then the dynamic has changed when we migrated to other countries like the US and Canada and France. The other countries. So the dynamics has changed despite of throughout the history. So I'm starting to see a lot of mental health issues in our community. I'm starting to see a lot of sexual abuse that is being swept under the rug during that time. So why not do a documentary on that tackles that issue where in our community is very taboo. So, like I said, I'm not as a freak as me.
You're going too fast. And I like what I'm hearing, and I'm glad you're here because I know this is a big issue. People don't like to mention that, and they don't like to even. But like you said, it's a taboo subject. So can you take us to that history to kind of educate our listeners?
Yeah, sure. When I did my research on the history of the African diaspora, it take you back like the colonization. So I'm referring to the Haitian history, and I'm not talking about like American history. I'm talking about the world history. So when France colonized, first of all, it was Spaniards. Now, in the early 1600 and 1700, it was the Spaniards that colonized Hispaniola. So Hispaniola is Haiti and Dominican Republic. Yes. So the slave trade started in 1600. So that was the Spaniards. Christopher Columbus was the first, discoverer of the Hispaniola, when his original plan was to go to India. So Haiti has much rich culture and much rich capital. Like, it has money, and during that time it was mostly tobacco and sugarcane. Yes. And so when slave trade started in the early 1600s, so all the west part of Africa, the African country like Guyana, Nigeria, Benin, Congo, Republic of Congo, that was the region of where our ancestors come from. And the difference between the history that the family dynamic in that era is that mothers and daughters look at mothers as for beauty. We look at beauty. We look at, femininity. Yep. You know what I'm saying? So that's what we look at our mothers to embody the image of motherhood. The mother represents womanhood, the enter of the kingdom of womanhood. Yep. So when we are girls, we look at our mothers as, okay, this is the ideal woman for future mate, future education, all the necessities that is like survival. So when colonization hit Haiti and slavery changed, the dynamic has changed. Okay. This is more of survival. This is more of like, okay, we're enslaved. What are we gonna do? We don't it's a family unit during that time because we're enslaved. We're, by the French owner. Yep. What are we gonna do? We don't have to worry about family right now. We have to worry about getting our freedom. That's the main course of our culture. We have to worry about freedom. And then we think about what's next in the future. So after, we fought against the French and we gained our independence in 1804, after the 1804, there's a lot of dynamic of it's not only colorism, but also classism in our culture. So there's a lot of colorism. Let's say, for example, my mother is a light-skinned woman. I'm a dark-skinned and light-skinned woman. Dark-skinned woman. The dynamic is still heavy because there's colorism. Colorism is just embedded in our culture. You know what I'm saying? Wow. We look at the lighter, the better. If you're dark, you're nothing. You know what I'm saying? Yeah. So imagine.
Oh man, I think when you said You kind of wow, and I like it. Like I said, I understand what you're saying. And my question: Did you grow up in Haiti, or did you know about that?
No, I grew up in the U.S.
Okay.
So there's a dent between the Haitian Americans and the Haitian who were born in Haiti. Yeah. So the Haitian Americans, like myself, we have the resources. We have the resources to access to mental health. We have resources to access the health that we have. Yeah. Unfortunately. And but in Haiti, there's limited access. Okay. There's limited access to mental health. There's limited access to women's rights, reproducing rights. All that we were fortunate enough to have in the U.S. is not available in Haiti. That's a huge difference between the Haitian Americans and the Haitian born.
Victoria, I'm very happy you're here because that's a lot. That's a lot. I like it. All right.
So the dynamic has changed between the Haitian Americans and the Haitian who are born in Haiti. There's a huge difference between a lot of us, but we can't be talking about unity when we have a lot of issues that need to be addressed. So that's why it motivated me to do a documentary. And throughout the history of the difference between, not only our Haitian community, but also in the whole African diaspora, because I'm covering the whole African diaspora, because I have talked to people from Canada, Jamaica, Trinidad and Tobago, Bahamas, like all the African diaspora that has this. I'll be hearing the same story. It is the same problem. I definitely same problem. Exactly. Absolutely. It was the same problem and it's not the same solution. So this documentary can shed the light of the difference between, the relationship, the psychological relationship, because I felt like we Haitian Americans, we carried the burden of the generational trauma. Wow. It was nothing. If you see the beginning of the baby doc era, to the Papa Doc era, to all of that, it's the same trauma. And we, as a Haitian American, we are the ones that either to break the cycle or continue the cycle. And this is the documentary that covers that.
Oh, man. So yes, let's do it 360. Okay. Your family. So let's start with you. How did you grow up in the U.S., living in the Haitian household?
Oh, my God. My family, my mom and my parents were both from Haiti during that time. And me growing up as a Haitian American, it was Haitian every day, 365 days a week, 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. That's Haitian all the day. But it's just the fact, I had it all day. But while I was growing up, I had to be different. I had to separate my cultural side to American side because I wanted to fit in. And it was really hard because back then I always get into fights. I always get to, I was get bullied. I was a huge nerd. I was bullied among my own peers, my own Haitian peers, which is really sad because they asked me even worse, oh, that's okay. Even worse because they will they're questioning my blackness sometimes. They're questioning my culture, oh, you Haitian, but you don't speak Creole. It's not my fault because I didn't grow up with my grandparents. I didn't grow up with my grandparents at all. Both of my parents didn't have a relationship with their parents. And my grandparents didn't have a relationship with their parents. So there's a lot of generational trauma. And I don't want to be more personal, but my mom's side of the family come from the wealthy side of Haiti. My grandfather used to be tutu matu. I don't know. It's a term for boogeyman during the Duvalier era. My grandfather. He was a tutu matu. And I heard stories about my grandfather, and I didn't pay attention to Haitian politics like that because it was just it's not relevant to me. And when I was doing a research on that era, it was so he was the one that terrorized the community. So, and people's blood, you know what I'm saying? So he's out here killing and Like, he killed people
Policy,
and ask question later.
I know.
Yeah. So, and also I have family members who in the political connection to the presidency during that time. So I don't know if you know this well-known activist called So Ann. She is a well-known political activist in Haiti.
Okay.
She ran for a senator. So if you look it up, her name is So Ann. Yeah, so I'm pretty much famous in Haiti. So I don't want people to know. If I went to Haiti today and they asked for my last name, they pretty much know my family, pretty much, because of the activists and how my grandfather was in
political background,
engaged that era.
Yeah.
So it motivates me to be a journalist because, like
your family have a.
I come from a political power. Oh yeah, definitely. Mm-hmm. Yeah, my mom grew up with wealth, right? Because during that era, my grandfather he has a big house, he has a mansion, he has maids cleaning after my mom and her siblings. In the bottom of his house, he has a convenience store. So he carries firearms. He carried firearms. So he carried AK-47. So if you do him wrong, you gotta go. So coming from, a family member who were well off during that era, it makes me feel like, where's my bougie rights? But they have to leave. Yeah, but the thing is, they have to leave because like, if they stay, I wouldn't exist at all.
And to add to what you're saying, that's a big exile for a lot of family where if they were involved in that politics on this time, they left Haiti. That's a new generation that kind of translated to the US. And I think your family got in the middle of it. So can you go deeper on your culture struggle, like you just mentioning? Can you go deeper on that?
Oh yeah, definitely. So I always knew that I wanted to be a journalist because growing up, back in the 90s, that was some difficult time. And you would hear people getting killed on a daily basis. So it kind of motivated me to be a journalist. But at the same time, I was into really deep in my culture. I was into, voodoo. I was into like alternative lifestyle that, Haitian people felt like you're shunned in the community. So I was into like punk rock. I was into like alternative music during that time when I was growing up. But at the same time, I questioned myself, like, am I Haitian enough to fit in? Or am I not Haitian enough because I'm listening to certain music, or I have certain style, or I have tattoos because they think I'm a desert. But to me, it felt like I like to be different. And growing up, it was hard because I've been bullied with questioning myself. Do I want to tell people that I'm Haitian so that people cannot bully me? Or should I just tell people that I'm Haitian so that the other race of people will think that, oh, wow, you look exotic, So
yeah,
it was questionable when I was growing up. And me as an individual, I have dealt with depression. I have dealt with anxiety, and me, it's been, I wasn't asked for help, what I'm saying? And I turned to education to escape. I was, when I was in high school, I was counting down of when I'm going to college.
Okay.
And that's where it's my time for me to escape whatever the issue that I had in my life. And then
one thing that resonates a lot. So if you follow us on YouTube or on our platform, on Apple Podcast, Podbean, everybody said college was an escape experience for them. So, and it's very fascinating to hear everybody. If you follow us, every single person we had, every guest we had on the show, say the same thing about their experience in college. But you said you mentioned something very, very it's a touchy subject when you mention about depression. I don't know if you want to go deeper on that, or it's up to you. But I know people will really want to know more, because it's a real struggle out there for a lot of people.
It's definitely. I'm going to deeper on that topic on my mental health, because it needs to be addressed right now, and this is it's very serious matter. I had the first mental problem that I started to have was anxiety. I think I got my anxiety is from my mom, because I feel like so antsy, and especially like if I'm surrounded by crowded, like if I go to it was a concert or a bal, I would just look for as the nearest exit and dip. So it was more of I first started, it was more of my social anxiety, because I'm always introverted when I was a child. I always felt alone. And even though I have friends, I felt like my friends are taking advantage of me. And I had this doubt and questioning myself, like, am I good enough? And if I'm better than enough? And that's why I'm like, okay, maybe it's just me. Maybe it's my self-esteem. And then it hit to college. That's when all hell broke loose, because when I was in college and I was, I wanted to escape my like whatever meant, like whenever the moment it be. But I was very overwhelmed, because I wasn't prepared what to expect when I go away for college, because both my parents were not college grad. Okay. They have a high school degree. That's only education they have. Right. So it's kind of like, I'm very scared. I don't know what to do. It's just like life was throwing me out the door during that time. And I was in my mood has changed. I wasn't active like I used to. I wasn't like, being social as I used to. So I was always up in my room, in my dorm room, and just do my work and just not be socialized. Okay. And then up until, I hit my mid-20s, and I was stressed. Mostly stressed, but at the same time, I was not motivated to finish up my degree, because there was certain issue that I don't know, like what's really bothers me until I'm going a little bit deeper, and I'm going really, really, really deeper. After, after I talked to my siblings and about like what, I've been depressed for a while. I have weird anxiety. I do have anger issue. So they addressed me to help me to get a therapist to combat my issues, because I felt like I wasn't motivated to do much. And even though I have so many ideas, I just felt like I was just not being myself for a while. Wow. And it took me, I was really serious. I was really mentally serious for 4 years until I actually got help that I needed. So I'm continually going to therapy to be a better person, to how to address my own emotions, and, making sure that I'm taking care of myself mentally instead of like the rest physically. Because if I can't take care of myself mentally, how am I going to take care of myself physically? Physically. And this is a huge problem that we had in our community, because we were taught that, pray away. You don't need, that's white people think. Like I said, to see all of that. And it was just,
I'm sorry to laugh. They say that that's why they say. They said no. Yeah, like you have food, you have a house, you shouldn't be depressed. All right?
Right, exactly. That was what I was. Sorry. Yep, that was what I was growing up to. I was growing up to. Oh, you have a house, you got a roof over your head. Why are you depressed for? Well, depressed for it was just like I had to hold it in and then battle it out in silently. I have this whole killing myself when I was a teenager. It was a long battle, and I started having that battle since I was 16 years old.
Wow.
And I couldn't. I was asking for help until I was in my mid-20s. And the therapy that it was when I went to my first therapy session, it was more like a conversation that I had with my friends kind of thing. So It was hard. I was looking for I prefer a Black therapist to understand what we Black people go through. Yeah. So I got myself a new therapist during that time, and I laid out all the issues that it happened to me. And I'm going to go back to my personal life. When I found out that I have a biological father, I said to myself, thank God I was on therapy right now, because if I wasn't in therapy, I wouldn't be here talking to you. Yes. I would be in prison for attempted murder. There was a secret that was kept from me most of my life.
Oh, man.
That everyone in my family knew except me. It hurts.
Yes.
It hurts. The minute they told me the secret that I had, they told me, I was hurt, and I was grateful because it was a blessing in disguise that during that time I was sneaking help.
Yeah. Yes.
But at the same time, I don't know how to address my own issue with that secret that was revealed to me.
How did you
in my
find
life?
Out? Did they tell you, or something happened?
No, they told me around February this year, and they told me how it happened. They told me how it happened, and
sorry to hear that.
When it's okay. When I talked to my first biological father, deep in my heart, I honestly don't want a relationship with him and his family, because his hurt caused my mother's hurt. He hurt my mother. Psychological damage that her hurt affected not just me, but affected my siblings too in the long run. And then Haitian people do not know their action hurt people.
Oh, wow.
They do. And they don't see it. They don't feel they
don't see it. Oh, thank you. And I think, yes, everywhere it's the same issue with everybody. It's not the same in the same dimension.
Yeah, it is.
But it's something part of it that every family deal with. And I think your documentary
that would actually, I agree.
Will make a good
that's why
help and resources for it. But so how did you get out of it?
Absolutely. How I get out of it is to find an avenue that I'm really good at. I'm very creative. I'm an entrepreneur. I do film. I like to write. I find ways to occupy my mind of the secret that was revealed to me. And with that, having a therapy that was advocating for you, was there for you, and having a very having support system is really big for me, because if it wasn't for the support that I had, I wouldn't be here. I wouldn't be here. So it's very important to have an external and internal support. The internal support is your family and friends. Your external is the outside, the therapists, your professors, and your teachers. Pretty much like people who don't know you will support your ventures. And that was really big for me to move forward, because I have a very strong support system that were advocating me, because they were there for me when I walked the stage to when I got my college degree. They were there for me when I got I got my first driver's license. I got my first car. They were there for me when they were there for me for my, major milestone in my life. So that's how I move forward.
I like big family, big Haitian family. They always proud of everything we do.
Yeah. So when my biological father was missing out 30 years, I was like, there's nothing to build a relationship on. And I'm not bashing men in general, but men who wasn't there for their children for long periods of time don't deserve to be part of it. Don't deserve that, because you caused this psychological damage that I had, even though I do have a father figure in my life.
Oh, wow.
You know, so I have a father figure. I have a father who loves me. And even though we're not blood, he's still my dad. He loves me for who I am, and he will support me. He encouraged me to be a journalist. He was the only one out of my whole family to encourage me to be a journalist, because not a lot of Haitian parents doesn't have that drive, that's very support system. So when my biological father wanted to come in my life, I want nothing to do with him, because he didn't open his mouth to say something. Even though you were young, you didn't open your mouth to take the responsibility. But it had another man who took it under his wing.
Yes.
This is why it's crucial. It's crucial to go to therapy. It was crucial for me to take care of my mental health. If I wasn't in my therapy, if I wasn't in, taking care of my mental health, I would be in destruction. I will be out here killing. I'll be doing God knows what.
Yeah.
Because of what I've been through. So do I really want him in my life? No.
Yeah. And
I moved on.
Like I said,
you have your own life. You have your own second family. Move on. That's the way it is.
Yes.
Time for the tear.
No. That's the tear make it well, because this is a serious issue. And I think people are gonna relate to this episode. It's just happened because this is what the platform is. Talking about things that people don't have a chance to talk about. And we as Haitian, we assume everything is fine as long as we have money, we have clothing, we have education, we have a way to live. But our history, the secrecy, the family secrecy sometimes keep us to have that burden upon us and need to be addressed. And then I applaud you for taking the courage to share this with us. So like I was saying, we need to do better as Haitian. But my next question is, did you identify yourself? Is it American, Haitian? So I don't know. How do you identify yourself?
First of all, I'm African Haitian. Okay. I'm African Haitian. My ancestors are from Ghana, Republic of Congo, and Angola. So pretty much West African, and I'm Haitian. So pretty much to answer your question, I'm African Caribbean.
Okay.
But if it's just, certain areas, I would just say I'm Haitian, period. I'm Haitian all the way. I grew up in our culture. So I'm Haitian, period. I don't care. I don't classify myself as American because I still get shunned when it comes to opportunity and the struggles and racism and sexism. I'm Haitian, period. Nobody can tell me otherwise. I'm Haitian.
That's the same thing for me too. I'm Haitian. So we have to embrace our culture. And the more we do it, the better. The more other people will have the courage to do the same thing. Mm-hmm. So let's switch to your journey into your education. Now you're a journalist. You're doing big things. So how is it for you?
Education-wise, it was a struggle for me because I was in special education. I was a special need child, and it was very difficult for my mom and I. And, during that time, growing up in the 90s, kids with special education, especially kids of color, there's something wrong with them. But it was not wrong. There's nothing wrong with me. It's just that, I have delayed, disability, so I didn't talk when I was 4 years old. So they placed me in special education through up until 6th grade. Then I get out of it, but I still get treated like I'm in special education until middle school. So when I went to high school, I went to a trade high school, and I graduated with a high school degree in business office administration. So it's pretty much just like business administration that I was pursuing. So after high school, I got accepted to University of Bridgeport for one semester, but during that time, it was during the financial recession. So I wasn't able to pay for my education. So I took a 2-3 years college gap year. So I had to get myself a job, save up what I need to save up for school. And then I went to a community college. That's where I meet my business professor. Still in contact to this day. Encouraged me to have a better understanding about business. So I was taking business elective in community college. And then I transferred to University of Dartmouth. I was there for 2 semesters. And then the Boston Marathon, the bomber, I went to school with him, and there's a lot of FBI on campus and the feds.
Jesus.
There was the feds on the campus, so I transferred out. It was hell.
Can you give us more detail?
Cool. Oh yeah, definitely. So, I was a new student at University of UMass Dartmouth.
Yep.
University of Massachusetts over Dartmouth, and I was an English major during that time, and I wanted to get a degree in journalism, but the concentration in journalism. So I was taking classes, get the requirements for me to graduate and all of that. So it was kind of like my second year when I transferred to a community college. And then during the spring semester, when I'm getting ready for the spring semester, around April, the Boston Marathon bombed in downtown Boston. Yeah. And turned to find out the kid that I went to school with attended UMass Dartmouth. So you know what? During that time, I was like, so what are we going to do? The school had lockdown, right? Half the school had lockdown. Feds, FBI came to the campus and tell the whole people on campus to evacuate everyone. Everybody has to leave immediately. Even though people who live internationally, I feel bad for international students, but for everyone else, they got to leave. They have to leave immediately because they had to do an investigation on campus. And I'm like, so during that time, I had a friend who used to live in Connecticut, so I stayed in Connecticut. Okay. Which is like an hour, probably an hour and a half. So once we were away from school after we got evacuated from the feds and the FBI and the DEA, the whole law enforcement team. Once they did an investigation on the campus and get the evidence that they thought they found the bomber, I decided to transfer out after the end of the spring semester. So during that time, I was in my early 20s. I was 23, 24 during that time. And I transferred out of UMass Dartmouth after that incident during the Boston Marathon bomber who attended our school. I took my school at that time. So I left, go to community college, changed my major to English, from English to business, because I felt like while I was in high school, I was very active with Business Professional America, DACA. I went to conferences, business conferences, when I was in high school. So, wow. Oh yeah, definitely. So it gravitated me to be more entrepreneur. So when I transferred out from UMass Dartmouth to go back to my community college, I changed my major to English to business because business is very broad. So I took a lot of business courses, and then I transferred to Salem State University, which is in Salem in Massachusetts. Yeah. Based on the history, it's my school at Salem is down the street from the actual trial of the Salem trial, the witch trial. So it's right down the street. Yeah. So I finished up my business degree, and during that time, that's when I become an entrepreneur. I hop on a business partnership while I was finished up my degree in Salem State University. So that's why I hop on the business partnership with FASE Magazine.
Yep.
I get half of the company, and then I hold the position as the managing editor. So my business partner was the editor-in-chief. I was the managing editor. So I was getting the experience of how to run a company, how to run a staff. So it gives me the skills that I needed to be an entrepreneur. And then after probably 3 years in or 4 years into the business, and I was a business operation management. So I was a business manager. So I was managing people, managing the company with finance, accounting, anything I learned from my undergrad. I was in the process to finish it, but anything I learned from all my business classes, I apply it to my business.
Okay.
Pretty much. And then COVID hit. Everything was good until when COVID hit, lost the business everything, because we're starting to see profit. Yeah, we started to see profit. And then I decided to I wanted to leave the business for good. I wanted to, focus on my own thing. So I decided to go back to freelancing, because during that time, as a journalist, you're a freelancer. So I was it.
Yep.
I was able to get writing assignment. I had a writing assignment, and during that time, I was about to leave. But I did, prior to that, I had a writing. I was fortunate enough to travel to Trinidad. I was traveling to Trinidad, and that was during the time, it was kind of like my last year of college. So I went to Trinidad for my vacation for spring break for a week. And, do a writing assignment about the lifestyle, the things to do when you're on a vacation in Trinidad. And then after I got back from Trinidad, I, do a lot of freelance work. I did marketing, digital marketing, social media marketing. So I was building my own clientele during that time. And then I decided to go back to Trinidad. And this time, the second time, it was more of a business trip. Okay. So the original plan is to open up a farm, mind you.
Okay.
Oh my God. So I decided to this is a business trip. What opportunities that I wanted to create. Yep. And then I have a writing assignment. During that time, I was in Guyana. So I took an hour flight from Trinidad to Guyana to do a writing assignment. And the writing assignment, during that time was American companies. Guyana just discovered oil. Okay. American companies are going to South America to get oil, even though there's oil in Texas. But anyways, so I was able to explore Guyana, beautiful country. Oh my God, beautiful country. People are nice. And it's like back home. It's just better. The economy was. So I was there for 3 days and for a writing assignment, explore Guyana, the countryside. I was staying at the countryside. I didn't stay on Georgetown. I stay outside of Georgetown. So I was able to enjoy my life. Yep, I was able to enjoy my vacation, my stay in Guyana. And then, boom. By the time I had to take a flight back to Trinidad for the remaining of my business trip, because I was staying there for 2 weeks. Okay. I got hold up by the immigration custom. They thought I was transporting drugs because I was staying for 3 days in the country, even though I was on a lockup abroad situation. So the immigration custom asked me a lot of questions, like, why are you in Guyana? I was here for a guy. Right. I asked them a lot. They asked me a lot of questions, and I was carrying like a carry-on, most of my stuff in my laptop, in my camera. And they asked me questions again. It was like, why are you in Guyana? Who are you with? I was like, you ain't my man. You ain't my man. So, turned to find out, they turned and found out they placed me in the office where there's a bed, right? There was a bed with the immigration custom office. I was staying there. There was 2 female officer. They asked me the same question like the dude did. Yeah. And they asked me, why you here? Why you staying for 3 days? All of that. They thought I was transporting drugs. And I said to myself, there's no money in Guyana. So why would I want to transport drugs anyway? There's no money. But back to the story. So it was a fun adventure, and they hold up the flight for me after they interrogate me and say, okay, you're up to go. I was traumatized from this experience and said to myself, I'm not going to Guyana ever again because of this. And so they hold up the flight for me, even though it's a beautiful country. Wow. Even though it was a beautiful country, I would love to stay. It's all right. And then I went back to Trinidad and continued with the remaining of, my vacation, my business vacation. So it was a good experience that I was able to take pictures and practice my photojournalism. Okay. Because I take pictures and to capture the culture, to capture just to, that was the practice of my filming, because it was more focused on photojournalism. Then when I went back to Trinidad, I was having fun. I was doing Fetline, I do Bakanan and Tubaga, everything. I having a good time. And then I explored the countryside of Trinidad. So I went to San Fernando. Gives me the idea of me to start my own business soon. Yeah, definitely. So when I get back, I was just confused. I was just like, I was just continuing to be a journalist. I just continued to write. And then COVID hit. I regrouped. I tried to figure out what I'm going to do. I'm recently a college grad, got a business degree. Why not utilize it? So I utilized my business degree, what I learned, and applied myself for my business adventure. So I'm in the process to open up a cafe where I lived. And this is a 420 cafe where people can come in and drink coffee at the same time. And the reason why I wanted to open up, because I'm very bougie and I like to go out for coffee all the time. And how I spend my day, how I spend my studies is going to the coffee shop. So I spend most of my studies at coffee shop to do my homework. I usually conduct businesses meetings. Okay. So it's always in the coffee shop. So it was a very interesting interact. So I was doing an assignment. I was doing a assignment at the Cape and for a record label in the Cape, because I'm still a business manager. So they asked me to be their business manager to operate the business side of the label down in the Cape. They have a live performances. I was networking. I told them that, I'm in the process to do 2 things, do a documentary, because with the years experience of, journalism and practice of my photojournalism, I wanted to translate it to film to test my journalism skills of doing a documentary. And then also I mentioned about open up a cafe where people like me as a filmmaker and an entrepreneur hang out. I like art, artists, so artists and painters and photographers and, the creative people, the creative content, people who look like me need a place to stay, to hang out and enjoy and have intellectual conversation with people. So why not to create a cafe? A cafe. Yeah. When I mentioned to one individual, it's like, oh my God, let me connect with certain so. So I was connected to the economic developer in my town, and I mentioned about the cafe. I was like, oh my God, this is what we need. Yeah. They connect me to another one, and I was like, oh my God, we need this. I'm giving you the support, give the resources that give me the resources that I need to just make it happen. So pretty much it was more networking. networking. I was networking. Once I get the help that I needed with my mental health, I was now being more social. So that way I was networking. I'm meeting people. I was like, hey, I have a business idea. Come through. Let's do a collaboration. So I was make up the time that, I was depressed for, so all the relationship that I had with people professionally and personally, it was due to my own personal demons that I have to endure in order for me to go back in the field. So I'm grateful that I was able to get the help that I needed, and I will continue to get the help that I need. At the same time, I was fortunate enough to I'm going to reach out to the people that I've known for years to help me with my business ventures. And I get the most support that I had and needed, and I'm doing it. So right now, I'm looking at funding and also finished up the business plan to open up a cafe. And once I hopefully expand to US and to Canada, then I can grow my another business adventures, which is become a supplier for the cannabis industry, because there's so much money that need to be made. Yeah. So I was like,
that's what I heard.
Why not get in? It was like, why not get in? So there's a lot of money to be made, and there's a lot of investors willing to invest. So why not? So that's what I'm currently doing right now, is just work on this documentary, getting funding. It was just pretty much just doing a lot of funding and networking. And I was fortunate enough to meet people that was willing to help out. So I was forever grateful for that.
So when should we expect your documentary?
If it wasn't for COVID, I would have start filming a year ago. But since it's COVID, I'm planning to start filming in the fall. So I'm reaching out right now for this summer. I'm reaching out psychologists, therapists, individuals who have their own experience with their mothers and daughters, influencers. So I'm doing the reaching out part and also putting together a production team. So right now it's just putting together a production team and reaching out to individuals who want to be part of it. And then I'm going to plan to start filming it in the fall.
Wow.
And then it's going to be a long journey because it's required for me to travel. There's a lot of traveling and a lot of content to produce.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
But I really appreciate the time, because you satisfy us when you said you're gonna be yourself and you go deeper on all the conversation, all the question we had. Last word for you?
I don't know. Last word. My tip for the Haitian individual who don't fit the typical Haitian, in our community, we're praised. Oh, the doctor, lawyer, the profession, the occupation that benefit the community. Just be yourself. If you want to be a Franco, do it. If you want to be a journalist, do it. If you want to be a business owner, do it. If you wanted to be a DJ, do it.
Yeah.
Let's never stop your dream. Never stop your dream. And always never take life for granted. Never take life for granted.
Well said. Definitely. Thank you, Victoria Antoine. She's a creator. She's a business person. She's an entrepreneur. And she's also a journalist. She's working on a documentary we will be expecting soon, but we'll be patient because she had a lot of work to do. This is our 11th episode, Divine Purpose Podcast. Please check us online on www.dppodcast.com, on YouTube, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, on Apple Podcasts, Google Podcasts, and Podbean. This is Divine Purpose Podcast Live with Eddy Dacius on our 11th episode. Thank you, and see you guys soon.